So one time I was hanging out with this friend of mine, and then he played this song. And he didn't tell me what the song was or where it was from, but I knew it sounded familiar, and I just couldn't put my finger on where this song came from. That was until I heard the lyric that everyone knows. And then it triggered this like Ratatouille flashback, and it looked something like this. Jump up, kick back, whip around and spin. With the recent trend of me revisiting my childhood nostalgia, and also with Ninjago being popular on the internet now, I thought this was the perfect time to revisit it and do a cover for it on the channel. Now, Ninjago is famously known for its super deep, intricate lore, which, don't get me wrong, it absolutely does have. But I have to admit that before going back into it, I was a bit worried that it would just be overhyped and that all the excitement and buzz around it was purely just nostalgia. I was wrong. As it turns out, Ninjago lore is not as good as we remember. It's better than we remember. For the most part. It's been, what, a month since I've last tortured myself with an hour-long lore review? How about we do this one a little bit different? Instead, I'm going to put them in a tier list. But even though this video features a tier list, it will not be a tier list video. It will still have most of the usual review formatting, and I will still explain the plot of the seasons and give my opinions on certain things. I'm just gonna try to go by it quicker. But without further ado, we begin. The first season was kinda ass. Thousands of years ago, this dude called the first Spinjitzu Master created Ninjago, like the entire just dimension of Ninjago. So he had these two kids named Wu and Garmadon. And Garmadon went insane and then he got struck by lightning and got banished to hell. Many years later, Wu recruits four ninja to find the weapons of Spinjitzu and defeat Garmadon. The characters have enough personality where you can tell them apart, but they still haven't quite found their footing yet. I can't really say the same for everyone, since Nia is just, the damsel in distress who gets captured right at the beginning and they all have to save her. And also, Garmadon has no personality. The Skulkin were fine, I guess. The only thing I really liked about them was the little song that would play every time they were on screen. Little, xylophones in the background. Or should I say, xylobones. The plot is pretty straightforward. They have to steal the golden weapons from these dragon guardians, and most of it they actually just skip over, which I'm fine with because we don't really need to see the same thing over and over again. Also, Wu literally offs himself in the first episode, but instead of going to the departed realm, he goes to the underworld realm, and then the ninja use their dragons to very easily just teleport into hell and then save him. So this basically just implies that the ninja can bring anyone back from the afterlife, but it's an ability they kind of just forget they have almost immediately. It's a pretty lackluster season overall, but then again, it is also the first season, so season 0 will get a C tier. Now, season 1. Season 1 is when crap gets real. Now, I'm sure most people know Lloyd Garmadon as the main character and face of Ninjago, and don't get me wrong, that definitely is true, but when he first appeared, he was not a villain, no. He was a shit stain on the face of the universe. Now, for those who don't know, Lloyd Garmadon is the son of a Lord Garmadon and a wannabe conqueror supervillain, and he also accidentally released a bunch of snake people from this ancient 1,000-year-old tomb. The snake people are called Serpentine, and there are 5-ish different tribes of them. Each one is a different color and has a different ability. I say 4-ish, 5-ish, because this dude named Pythor P. Chumsworthy killed and ate his entire family, so technically he is the last Anachondri. The Serpentine want revenge on humanity for locking them underground all those thousands of years ago. It was so long ago that none of them even remember why it happened, but they just don't really care anymore. We also find out about true potentials, where basically whenever one of the ninja undergoes a great big character arc, they would unlock this big cosmic energy form and become crazy powerful. Now, I don't want to spoil what any of the ninjas' character arcs are, but I will tell you this. Zane's was pretty awesome. Nia has a lot more to do this season. Now she has this alternate persona called Samurai X, which was originally built up as this huge big mystery. But the twist is kind of obvious if you're not, 7 years old. Garmadon is back now and he's a lot better in this season. Even though he's a power-mad evil Dark Lord or whatever, he actually does care about his son Lloyd and ends up teaming up with the ninja to save him. So there's this prophecy that there's gonna be a green ninja who's gonna rise up and vanquish all evil or something. As a kid, this was a pretty big deal because green was my favorite color, and throughout the season it's built up that Kai will be the green ninja. I'm sure, as we all know, in the end it turned out to be Lloyd, which apparently a lot of fans were upset by, but honestly, I really don't mind the change. It is a surprising twist, and I don't really mind the whole redemption arc aspect to it. In the end, the Serpentine released this giant snake monster called the Great Devourer, and also whenever it was a baby, it bit Garmadon, and its venom is the reason why he's evil now. In the end, he ends up defeating the Great Devourer by using the 4 golden weapons, which is also very ironic because the entire previous season was about keeping the golden weapons away from Garmadon. Season 1 gets an A tier. Season 2 somehow feels kind of better and worse at the same time. In Season 2, there's plenty of shakeups. It never really feels like there's a status quo because things are just constantly changing. Garmadon fuses all the golden weapons together into one singular mega weapon, and its power is to create plot devices. So Garmadon accidentally brings a dinosaur to life, then the ninja accidentally turned Lloyd into an adult. It is kind of sad how Lloyd missed out on most of his childhood, but then again, would you really rather he actually aged in real time? Then there's some, time travel or something, and then the mega weapon is destroyed. Or maybe it never even existed in the first place, or I don't know. Then the season does a bit of a 180 where the Serpentine accidentally lock themselves underground again, and then also these stone dudes escape and they kind of replace the Serpentine as the new main antagonists. So Garmadon teams up with the Overlord, this shape-shifting dark entity that's the leader of the Stone Warriors and was also defeated by the first Benjutsu Master thousands of years ago. Overlord, honestly, I don't like him. He's this vague, darkness, spooky, evil monster thing that, he's evil incarnate, the actual living spirit of evil thing, no. We also get introduced to Lloyd's mom, Misako. She found out that Lloyd was going to be the Green Ninja long before anyone else did, and proceeded to pretty much abandon him so she could pursue a life of studying the history on the Green Ninja. In the finale, there is a lot of tension between Lloyd and Garmadon. Neither of them want to hurt the other, but they both know that it's their destiny to fight each other. Overlord possesses Garmadon, and he begins transforming him into his true form. Spoilers. And also, he begins infecting the residents of Ninjago with the shadow zombie plague, which really unsettled me when I was younger. All the ninja combine their powers into Lloyd, and he transforms into the all-powerful Golden Ninja, and he uses his powers to destroy Overlord and turn Garmadon back into an ordinary human. I really enjoyed the last few episodes of this season. They really do wrap up all the loose ends from previous seasons. But I don't know, this season just isn't really as well put together or structured as the first one was. So I'm going to have to put it in Godzilla. Season 3 rebooted, or as I like to call it, the Shark Jumpy season. Originally, the final battle was meant to be, well, the final battle. But the fans wanted more, so they gave us Rebooted. Season 3 Rebooted is overall kinda dumb. So Ninjago gets rebuilt as this super futuristic sci-fi city called New Ninjago City, but oh no, Overlord's back and he's an AI generated image now. That's pretty much the only thing I like about Overlord. The fact that every time he appears he's in a different form. So Overlord sends his Nindroid, get it? Nindroid army into the city and they do whatever, I don't know. The ninja receive what is called the Technoblades, which allow them to hack into machinery. Except, let's not kid ourselves, the Technoblades are just glorified bootleg versions of the golden weapons. Also, Wu is turned into an evil robot, which really freaked me out as a kid. And I've seen Sonic Underground. I understand how terrifying it is to be turned into a mindless automaton. But the potential for an evil Wu felt seriously wasted this season, since it ended up feeling nowhere near as big a deal as it should have. So it's established that golden power and green power aren't the same thing, but they both still exist inside Lloyd. It's a little bit confusing. I really like Garmadon as a good guy, and I wish that he fully replaced Wu as the team's leader, because he's just the best. The Serpentine are back, and they're good now, and even in later seasons we start to see them integrate into human society. I like little world building stuff like that, that's neat. It's also revealed that the reason why the Serpentine were locked underground is because they were scared of some dude called the Golden Master, who is said to wield both, like, darkness energy and light energy, which I think kinda contradicts the whole light versus dark prophecy from season 2. And also there is, like, some light hinting that the Golden Master could be Lloyd, but it's very obviously not. I think they should have maybe gone more all in on that big reveal, or I guess fake out reveal, but they don't. So yeah, Overlord is Golden Master. That's obvious. Oh, I forgot to mention, Pythor is back, but I don't like him anymore. Classic Pythor had big dick energy. This Pythor has small dick energy. Well, actually, he has small everything energy because he shrinks down. In the end, Zane sacrifices himself to stop Overlord. Many fans point to this moment as the most heart-wrenching in all of Ninjago. Hey, can someone name, like, a robot character in something that hasn't either died or turned evil? Like, even if it's just temporarily, in fact, especially if it's temporary, that always happens. Almost immediately after this heartbreaking moment, it's revealed that Zane has been rebuilt as the Titanium Ninja. I will give them credit though, he doesn't like immediately come back. They have to go through some obstacles before he's like officially back. This moment does lead to the whole trend where they kill off Zane once every season, and it doesn't happen like as much as some of the fans might lead you to believe, but it does happen a lot more than it should. Ninjago seasons already tend to have like a theme or gimmick each season, but the decision to have like robots in a primarily mythological based series just made the gimmick feel more gimmicky. You may have noticed a pet peeve of mine I frequently talk about on this channel, where whenever shows like use inconsistent concepts and stuff instead of sticking with a certain level of realism, and I'm half certain that watching Ninjago Season 3 when I was younger is the reason why I have that pet peeve. But this season also introduced Pixel, so can't be all bad. Rebooted gets a D tier. Season 4, Tournament of Elements. Following the death of Zane, all the ninja retire and go their separate paths. The group is reunited upon discovering a note that claims to know Zane's true fate. The group discovers the existence of other elemental masters besides just them. Apparently, they all got their powers from their grandparents, who got their powers from the first Binjutsu master. Kai falls for a woman named Skylar, who's the master of an unknown element. The elemental masters end up on this island run by furry cultists, and they force them to fight in this huge tournament thing. But of course, it's revealed that whenever someone loses the competition, they get thrown in a dungeon and then all their powers are taken away. And the cherry on top is that only one can remain, which means that all the ninja will have to, sooner or later, fight each other. Eventually, we do find out what Skylar's element is, and at one point they think that it's fire, but it's not. And if it is fire, then that would mean she's Kai's cousin, which means at one point they thought Kai had a crush on his cousin. You see, it's funny because incest. So Master Chen, the head honcho of the cult, he's stealing all their powers because he needs them for a spell. But I'm not gonna tell you what the spell is, because just go watch it. In the final battle, Garmadon is forced to sacrifice himself to save the day, which is very sad but also really disappointing because, again, I like him more than Wu. I really like the introduction of the elemental masters, and I feel like it doesn't really contradict the existence of golden weapons either. They added some more background to the Serpentine, which I think works a lot more than what they tried to do in Season 3 with the whole Golden Master thing. There's a lot of Garmadon backstory added, and at one point there's a lot of tension between him and Wu because this big lie that he had been telling his whole life gets revealed, and again, I don't want to spoil it. And I like the idea that Garmadon turns evil because of actual bad life choices he made, and not just, spooky snake venom turns you into the evil dark version of yourself. We are also introduced to the Cursed Realm and the concept of alternate realms, something that will play a very big part in future seasons, especially the next one. So to conclude Season 4, there's one last thing I want to mention. So one of the elemental masters is this woman named Tox, who's the master of internet Twitter culture, and something very strange about her is that she looks exactly like a completely unrelated character named Toxikita from a different LEGO line called Ultra Agents that nobody remembers. I don't get why they did that, and it always bothered me. So Season 4 goes in... dang it, I can't find the image. It's just Season 4 in the tier list. I probably could go get it, but I don't feel like looking for it. So it went in A tier, is where I put it. So just pretend you can see it in A tier. Ooh, it's the spooky ghost season! So in this season, we get introduced to Moro, who's the master of wind, and also an old student of Wu who thought he was the Green Ninja, but, very obviously isn't. Upon discovering he wasn't the real Green Ninja, he would become bitter and then run off. Then he'd get stuck in a cave and starve to death. The previous season introduced the existence of the Cursed Realm, and in this season we get some more elaboration on that. Whenever you enter the Cursed Realm, you transform into a ghost. Although technically Moro never was sent to the Cursed Realm, he died, which in Ninjago, those two things are not the same thing, so there is a bit of a plot hole. Moro was jealous at Lloyd for becoming the Green Ninja, so he possessed him, making him evil! Since the ninja had fused all their powers into Lloyd way back in Season 2, their powers are like connected now or something, so whenever Lloyd got possessed, the other ninja lost their abilities. The ninja already lose their powers left and right in this show, but since this season has the whole ghost theme, I think them not being able to fight back really adds to the whole horror element. Nia finally gets to join the rest of the ninja, and she becomes the Water Ninja, because water kills ghosts in this universe. That's actually kind of terrifying. If anything, ghosts should be scared of us. We can just spit on them. Speaking of terrified, Cole himself is also permanently transformed into a ghost by one of their enemies, Master Yang. Cole turning into a ghost is one of the most dramatic and memorable things about Season 5, especially now since Cole's voice actor Kirby Morrow tragically passed away in November of 2020. Master Yang actually invented this technique called air jitsu, which is basically just spin jitsu, only it makes you fly. I find the existence of air jitsu kind of confusing since Moro's element is air, and the way the elements work is that if it's not your element, you can't use it. So, how does air jitsu even exist in the first place? Plus, after the next few seasons, they end up just kind of forgetting that air jitsu existed. Like it was meant to replace spin jitsu, but then it ends up just fizzling out, kind of like bay wheels. So in the finale, the cursed realm transforms into this giant Cthulhu butthole monster called the Preeminent, and it tries to kill and eat everybody, but then Nia gets it wet and it dies, and all the ghosts inside of it die as well. At one point, I forgot exactly when, but they go to a different alternate realm called the Cloud Kingdom, where basically everyone's life is scripted out from birth to death, and you'd think that this would be like an explanation for how all the prophecies and stuff exist, like the Green Ninja prophecy or the Golden Master prophecy, but no, apparently it's not. They don't do anything with that. Also, Chima is canon, apparently. I will never cover Chima. Even when I was younger, I didn't like it. That's how awful it was. Season 5, pretty good, but not perfect. I give it a Godzilla. Way up she rises, way up she rises, way up she rises early in the morning. So the ninja have now become world famous celebrities. One day when the ninja were out doing some charity stuff, I don't know, they were too distracted, and then one of their old enemies, Klaus, found this thing called the Teapot of Tyron, which was just sitting in a garbage heap somewhere for some reason, and he accidentally freed a djinn named Natakan. Natakan uses his shapeshifting powers to frame the ninja, resulting in them becoming public enemies number one. Natakan is from one of the many alternate realms, and his realm is, and I kid you not, it is literally called Jinjago. Not only is Natakan a Jin, but he's also a pirate, and so he freed his old pirate crew from this alternate realm. They don't specify which realm, but it's supposedly one where time works differently because none of his crew have aged and they're all still alive. So there's this one character named Doubloon, and I think he's really cool because his face does this thing where it like switches around, which I think could be a reference to double-sided Lego heads, kind of like Bad Cop, one of my favorite Lego movie characters. But what I find really interesting about him is that he can do spinjitzu, which usually it's like the main hero, the main bad guy, maybe a few side characters here and there that can do spinjitzu. It's never really like any of the side villains, which I thought was really cool, really interesting. Natakan basically bounces around character to character, granting them all these different wishes, tricking them into trapping themselves inside of his lamp and or sword. At one point in this season, Jay finds out he's adopted, which I think is a really important arc for him to go through, since his real dad, although he was like a rich movie star, his junkyard parents are the ones who actually raised him. They're the people he actually loves. I think season 6 is Jay's strongest season and is definitely the Jay season. The only thing I don't like about season 6 is the ending, and I think if you've seen it, then you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. For those who have seen season 6, why does Jay literally lose all of his character development in the next season? Okay, technically there is one more episode in season 6. It's called Day of the Departed. Day of the Departed is basically just how Cole became human again. I think it's fine that Cole is human again. Like, Zane being a robot is fine, but like whenever you have a robot and a ghost, that just makes things too weird and confusing. The whole Ghost Coal thing was kind of like a vacation. It was fun while it lasted, but it kinda had to end at some point. All their old enemies get resurrected, which is, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but it is kinda cliche. It does put into perspective how the ninja don't really have much of a rogues gallery, since their enemies always die. Master Yang is back, but he has a completely different personality. In fact, I think he acts different with every appearance. Day of the Departed was okay, but really the only notable thing that happens is Cole turning human again. And I guess it is fine seeing all the old villains back, even if it is just this one time. And this does actually create a bit of a plot hole since it was prophesized Cole was meant to die. I'll put Skybound in A tier, and Day of the Departed in mediocre. Season 7, The Fingers of Space. Season 7 is, for me, when I started to kind of lose interest in the series. So there are these two members of the Masters of Time, Crux and Acronix. They're twin brothers, and they're both the Masters of Time. They control different aspects of time or whatever, I don't really know how that works. They betrayed the other elemental masters and tried to take over the world or whatever, I don't know. So they basically took their powers away and then sent them to the future. In the future, they want to collect these things called the Time Blades, which have their power sword inside them. That way they can build this big time robot and go back and then, reset everything. So in this season, Kai and Nia find out this, big devastating secret about their parents, but then it's revealed that the secret wasn't entirely what they thought it was, like it was something not as bad as what they thought it was, which ends up feeling like kind of a letdown. Like it's not bad, but it is pretty disappointing they didn't go all the way with a twist. So in this season, Wu is taken out of commission, so Lloyd has to take charge as the new leader, even though he's been taking charge since season 4. Also, a lot of the ninja feel like their personalities regress, which is especially infuriating for Jay since in the last season he got the most development, and here he doesn't just regress, he full-on resets. And this season also really blue-balled me on the Godzilla. There's not a whole lot of scene changes, most of it takes place in either a sewer or a museum. The time travel is introduced in the first episode, but they don't do any actual time travel until the finale. I get that they wanted to save the time travel for the big climax at the end, but most of the season is just them collecting the time blades, and this is one of those plot lines where you already know, of course the bad guys are gonna collect all of the MacGuffin artifacts, that way they can have a big final battle, and it's really exhausting. And yeah, that was the Hands of Time season. Hands of Time gets a mediocre. Somehow they made time travel boring. The Sons of Garmadon, Season 8. This season is whenever they change the character designs to make them look more like their movie counterparts. And unsurprisingly, fans were not happy. Not happy. Except actually, even though they look like the movie Ninja, they still canonically aren't, since apparently Crux and Acronix did some Flashpoint paradox type stuff, and now Jay has freckles. But hey, new designs don't really matter all that much. In fact, I like the new designs. It would only really be a big deal if their voices changed. Right? Pre-Hands of Time Lloyd is voiced by Jillian Michaels, whereas post-Hands of Time Lloyd is voiced by Sam Vincent. New Lloyd doesn't really feel exactly like old Lloyd, but I think he still works as a protagonist. He's not really better or worse, he's just kinda different. Something that I did find off-putting about Season 8 was how Garmadon is not only alive, but he's also evil again. You see, I was worried because the Ninjago movie used Garmadon, so obviously the show that's going to be borrowing from its style now has to feel obligated to bring back Garmadon even though his character is already dead. But I'll admit, I think the way they brought him back did really work. So as it turns out, the first Spinjitzu master is actually a hybrid between dragons and Oni. For those who don't know what an Oni is, just look up Japanese Kleenex commercial and that'll about summarize it. And of course, that means that Wu and Garmadon have dragon and Oni lineage. So in Sons of Garmadon, we get introduced to, well, the Sons of Garmadon, and they worship, again, Garmadon. Garmadon didn't cultivate them or anything, they all chose to follow him, which I think is a really good way of showing the impact all these different gods and monsters would have on a normal society. There are these masks called the Oni masks that whenever you put them on, you get like a different power. Except none of the powers really fit with what the mask is named, and none of the powers really have anything to do with Oni either. The Oni masks are pretty much just the stereotypical fetch quest item that the good guys have to get before the bad guys do, but you know that obviously the bad guys are gonna get it anyway. And this is especially disappointing because that's the exact same thing they did with the Time Blades in the previous season. Before I continue with Season 8, there is actually like a big thing revealed, and I'll have to spoil it for this next thing I want to talk about, so just, fair warning, big spoiler coming up. The ninja meet Harumi, the Jade Princess. She's not biologically related to the royal family, she's actually an orphan that was adopted by them. Lloyd and Harumi start to grow to like each other, which is also really interesting to see because I'm pretty sure Harumi is actually Lloyd's first love interest in the entire series. But eventually it was revealed that Harumi is actually the whole ringleader behind the Sons of Garmadon operation, and she was planning on double-crossing them from the very beginning. Whenever Harumi was a child, she actually looked up to the ninja and idolized them, but then her family was killed by the Great Devourer, and if you remember, the Great Devourer was never beaten by the ninja, it was beaten by Garmadon. One of the ninja's most cunning and manipulative adversaries was indirectly created by one of their past failures. That is how you use continuity. I've seen some people show concern over the, I guess, implied age gap between Lloyd and Harumi, since, one of them was, a child when the other was a teen, and, now we're supposed to believe they're, the same age. If you think that's creepy, look up the age gap between Zane and Pixel. Harumi succeeds in getting all the Oni masks, and she does a ritual to resurrect Garmadon. So Garmadon returns, and apparently his Oni powers have gone to his head and made him go insane, and then he, defeats all the ninja. The end. Season 8 will be getting a Godzilla. It definitely breathed life back into the series, but it wasn't exactly perfect. It was a little cliche here and there, but I think overall it was a pretty decent season. The original ninja are trapped in an alternate dimension along with an age-reversed Wu. Meanwhile, Nia and a powerless Lloyd are leading the resistance against Garmadon. The realm that the ninja are stuck in is known as the First Realm, aka the realm of the Oni and the Dragon. And they're also being hunted by these, Russian albino Mad Max people. I don't really know what, species they're supposed to be, because they're definitely not dragon, and they're not Oni either, and I highly doubt they're human. But a realm can have more than one species, and we already didn't know a whole lot about the first realm, so it's not really all that of a stretch that a different humanoid life form just also happened to exist alongside the Oni and the dragon. Lloyd recruits a handful of the old elemental masters to help him fight off the Sons of Garmadon, who at this point have taken over the city. So there's this one villain named Mr. E, and they try to establish a personal connection between him and Zane because they're both robots, but I feel like it doesn't really work. The reveal that he's a robot is supposed to be this big, shocking twist, but you fought evil robots before and you had no problem with it, so why should it matter now? I can't remember if this was through theories or if they were actually originally going to do this, but I heard that Mr. E is actually Echo Zane, which does kind of make sense since E and Echo. And I don't know if that would have been the perfect course of action, but at least it's better than just having him be a random robot. And to make things worse, he is destroyed by Garmadon out of nowhere, so it's just like, okay, that whole thing was pointless, I guess. Because Master Wu was turned into a kid, all the ninja now have to teach him the same lessons he taught them. Oh, how the turns have tabled. Lloyd is able to prove that he doesn't need powers to lead the rebellion. Lloyd's word is able to lift the spirits of the people and unite them as one. Of course, it wasn't easy. Lloyd had to work through a lot of doubt, but eventually he realized that everyone was counting on him and he couldn't just give up. Wu begins seeing visions of his father telling him that they need to have faith. And at the same time, they meet a woman named Faith. See where this is going? Iron Baron, leader of the Dragon Hunters, forces Faith to wear a mask and hide her identity. So I think it's pretty clear that Faith must have known the original Spinjitzu master. And maybe the reason she wears the mask is to hide the fact that she's a traitor. Well, actually, no, none of that was how it happened. You see, Faith never met the first Spinjitzu master, so it actually was just a gigantic coincidence. Wu remembered that memory at the exact same time they met someone who had that same name. And the whole reason she wears the mask is actually pretty simple. Iron Baron hates women. But wait, that can't be true. Why would he give the only jetpack to a girl then? In the finale, Lloyd and Garmadon have their final showdown. Lloyd regains his power, but realizes that the more he fights Garmadon, the more powerful he becomes. So he fights Garmadon without fighting him, which is the exact same tactic Garmadon himself used way back in Season 3. Subtle throwback! So Harumi also receives a redemption arc, and I really like the way it plays out because it's not as cliche as you'd expect. It's not like Lloyd gives some speech where he's like, no, don't do it, and then she jumps in front of him right as Garmadon attacks, and then she dies and gives a speech, and then they build a giant statue in her honor even though she killed a bunch of people also. No, it's not like that. She stumbles upon a family who's going through the exact same thing she went through all those years ago. This is basically the slap in the face she needs, and so she rescues the family. Then she pulls a Tom and Jerry and gets flattened by a falling building. Very slowly and painfully, all her organs squish and pop, and then all her bones snap and then break off and get crumbled into little dust bones. The thing I like about this moment is that Lloyd isn't there when it happens. No one sees it unfold. It's not really a public thing, and it doesn't really matter that no one knew, because what matters is that family is alive now because of her. I think what I like about this season is that it's very rock bottom. Now, I don't mean rock bottom in the sense that it's bad. I mean rock bottom more in the sense that the characters are now at a conflict that is much higher stakes than anything else they've ever faced before. Now, this season is actually meant to be like the lead up to the finale, or a big finale that would have been the finale but wasn't the actual finale. And I'm not really a huge fan of that finale. I'll get into that, once I get to the next season. But I feel like this season 9, out of every Ninjago season that could have been the finale, like season 2 or season 15, I feel like this one is the best finale. I'm not trying to say this season is like absolutely flawless, but I feel like out of every season that could have been the finale, or that was originally meant to be the finale, this one is the best. And for that, I'm giving season 9 a perfect S. Season 10, March of the Oni. The way this season was built up, it seemed as though it was actually going to be the final season of Ninjago, since it was actually the third in the Oni trilogy, was season 8, 9, and 10, and it was also the 10th season. So yeah, this season was meant to be the ending, and really it should have been, but I still feel like season 9 just kind of did a better job of building things up, which is why it is in S tier and this one is not. March of the Oni is less a season and more a movie broken into 4 episodes, and I feel like it should have been longer because there were a lot of unanswered questions. Plus, the last episode was, I think, 98. Like, literally, if you do two more, you'd have 100, so you could have the final episode be episode 100 of season 10. I mean, it was right there, guys, come on! So the Oni invade and they cover the whole town with this huge fog thing that turns people to stone, which kinda doesn't make a whole lot of sense since their power is that they destroy things. So of course they have to team up with Garmadon to stop the other Oni. Now I don't really have a problem with this being a reused plotline, I just don't really like how there aren't any callbacks to the original time they did this plotline. So in this season, Garmadon goes through a redemption arc again, only this time instead of turning back into a human, he actually just kinda learns to be good while being an Oni, which I guess is fine. It is different from what happened before, and being an Oni shouldn't automatically make you always evil. So they recreate the original golden weapons and then face off against the Oni. Before the final battle, Jay proposes to Nia or whatever, and of course she says yes. I feel like Jay has peaked after Skybound, but I mean it's a nice moment. They realize that since the Oni are powered by destruction, they all combine their tornadoes to form yet another tornado of creation, like way back in the first episode. Lloyd sees a vision of the first Spinjitzu master, then realizes that all the Oni have disappeared for some reason. Like, are they dead? Were they teleported? Where'd they go? The only one that survived was Garmadon, and he just kinda dipped afterward anyway. This season feels like it tries to be conclusive, but a lot of it just kind of falls flat. Like, why did the Oni wait so long to invade? And where did Garmadon go after he left? Like, there's just so many unanswered questions, but technically this isn't the ending because there are still 5 more seasons to go. I'm gonna have to put this season in C tier. It didn't really do it for me. It felt kind of anticlimactic. Not really for the series as a whole, but just for the Oni trilogy in general. But for better or worse, it's not the last season, and we've still got more to go. Season 11, Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu. Now I know what you might be thinking. Forbidden Spinjitzu? Why would Spinjitzu ever be forbidden? Did the first Spinjitzu master make some sort of mistake? Did he have a lapse in judgment? Did he do anything that would make us see him as more than just a one-dimensional pure good idol from the past? No. The answer is no. The Forbidden Spinjitzu was literally made with the intention of being forbidden. Huh? Wu and Garmadon actually stole it and misused it when they were kids, and their dad just apparently never found out. If they had done that and then it became forbidden, then that would have made sense. It's said that whoever uses the forbidden Spinjitzu is driven insane and corrupted by the power. Then why didn't it corrupt Wu and Garmadon? They were literally kids. It's when you're most corruptible. And don't give me any of that Oni dragon BS. Oh, and starting this season forward, every episode's runtime is now cut down from 22 minutes to 11 minutes. So they meet a serpentine sorceress named Asphira that once knew Wu, which I thought was pretty cool because there aren't too many magic users in Ninjago, and also, again, she knew Wu, but then she just kind of casually steals Kai's abilities, which doesn't make any sense because power stealing does exist in this universe, but it's nowhere near that easy. And this season also introduces clutch powers. Only true OGs will remember clutch powers. While the original Clutch was a brave and noble hero, this one is just kind of an a-hole that doesn't really have the same personality in any way. It almost feels like an insult to the original Clutch just how much of a bad person they made him out to be. Most of this season is just them fighting Asphira, and there's a lot of fire and destruction stuff. In fact, I think the first episode the ninja want to go on an adventure just because there aren't any villains and they're really bored. Like, they should be happy there aren't any villains. That's a good thing. Zane has a vision of something bad happening in the future, but they all just kind of ignore it because, Zane visions are notorious for not actually telling the future. The only redeeming quality of this season is that one episode where they drag Kai's dead body around the whole time. Oh yeah, and also the one with the paper kids. That one was good too. Ironically, it didn't even feature the main characters. Oh, but wait, we're not done with season 11 just quite yet. You see, season 11 is kind of weird because it actually has two story arcs crammed into it instead of just one, and the two arcs don't really have a whole lot to do with each other. The first arc of season 11 was all about the origin of the forbidden spinjitzu and the Sphera, and there's all the fire and stuff. In the second arc of season 11, the forbidden spinjitzu only really becomes important in like the very last episode, as Sphera is not there and it's about ice instead of fire. Now, I have to admit that the second arc is a lot better than the first one. The story of this one is that Zane has gone missing and the ninja need to look for him in yet another one of the 16 realms, the Never Realm. Now, it's always good to explore one of the 16 realms, but this one is especially hyped up as being very dangerous because apparently once you enter, you can you guess, never return. Except the reason why the Never Realm is inescapable isn't because it's too dangerous, it's just because they just actually don't have the resources required to get someone out of the realm. And also later we find out that time dilation exists, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the realm being inescapable either. Lloyd goes on his own personal journey where he meets a shape-shifting wolf girl named Akita. She's cool, I like her. But initially they don't trust each other, which does make sense since they've both pretty much lost everything. So the villain of this season is the Ice Emperor, who wants to freeze the entire realm, and he's taken Zane prisoner and he wants him to help him freeze the entire realm, but not really, because the Ice Emperor actually is Zane the whole time. This is a twist that you really don't see coming, and it also explains why Forbidden Spinjitzu is so dangerous. In the end, Lloyd is able to save Zane by reminding him why he was created in the first place, to protect others that cannot protect themselves. It's always good to explore other realms in the Ninjago universe, and the story for this one was definitely better than the previous arc, the fire one, but it still wasn't really like that crazy or anything like that. They do hint that Akita could return in a future season, but she doesn't, and probably never will because of the time dilation. She probably died of old age like 5 minutes after Lloyd got home again. Alright, so the first arc of season 11 gets a just Y on the tier list because it is seriously the most just abysmal thing I've seen come out of Ninjago. And the second arc, yeah, it's pretty modest, mediocre, I guess. It could have been better, but it still loads better than the first arc. Season 12, Prime Empire. If you haven't seen season 12 of Ninjago, then like mentally prepare yourself because this is gonna get wild. So Jay plays a video game, then he gets sucked inside the arcade cabinet, and then ends up in this digital world. The game world, which is known as Prime Empire, is ruled over by the evil digital overlord Unagami, so the ninja have to team up with all the players of the game to liberate them from his oppressive rule. Now I do have to give this season credit. There is a lot of attention to detail with the visuals. They really do nail the whole digital video game aesthetic of everything. They do a really good job building up the idea that every player has only a finite number of lives, and if you lose then you get trapped inside this tiny pocket cube thing. This season reminded me of things like Star Wars and, ironically, Sonic Underground, because there are all these rebels working together fighting the oppressive bad guys, and if they get captured, something very, very bad happens to them. Now, with all of that being said, why is this a Ninjago season? I don't think it's like really a bad concept or a bad plot or anything. It's just that why does this have to be Ninjago specifically? Lego could have very easily just made this its own series, something like Nexo Knights, instead of just writing on the tales of Ninjago. But something I can't really excuse is how this season introduces the idea that any and all code or machinery is automatically sentient, which opens up way too many questions. I get that the whole point is a person's a person no matter how small, but using digital video game characters to convey that message is just such a weird, contradictory way of doing that. I guess that means it's immoral to play video games because you're torturing digital characters. Oh, and in case you're wondering why Unagami is so evil and insane, it's not because he was programmed to be that way or because his creator used some, like, magic thing on him. Nah, he verbally told him, give the player a good time, and he basically took that as, oh, so in other words, create an entire pocket dimension inside of an arcade cabinet and suck a bunch of people into it, and hold them there captive and then let them escape. Because that's what I'm pretty sure it means. Unlike most seasons, the ninja never actually defeat Unagami. Instead, Milton Dyer, his creator, actually is able to talk him down, and so they go off into the sunset together. I guess it's okay, it's, a pretty wholesome ending, but it does still raise a lot of questions. Unagami, for some reason, stops using his powers in later seasons, which makes really no sense because he's like one of the most powerful people in this universe. You know how many threats he could have stopped, like, on his own? And they really just kind of gloss over the fact that he built a portal into a video game world and found a way to turn ones and zeros into actual living, breathing organisms. And in later seasons, we see them playing Prime Empire as an ordinary video game. So what, killing video game characters was bad before, but it's okay now? Kinda ruins that whole a person's a person message in Season 12, right? The last thing I want to mention about Season 12 is that they did a noir episode that also included a jazz version of the intro, and that was really cool. I'm afraid Season 12 will have to get a poo-poo on the tier list. I mean, it does have its fair share of problems, but overall its main issue was the fact that it was connected to Ninjago in the first place, and if it was its own thing, it probably would have been received a lot better and maybe would have even had a whole fan base dedicated to it and everything. Season 13, Master of the Mountain. Season 13 is very much a return to form for Ninjago. The ninja visit a mythical kingdom called Shintaru that just kind of apparently existed in this world all along, but no one ever really knew about it. But of course, things are never as they seem, and the ninja discover an entire cave system with dungeons and tunnels beneath the mountain. And there are two rival species named Geckos and Munts that were enslaved by a bad guy called the Skull Sorcerer. Oh yeah, and also Cole has a crew now. So in this season, we finally find out what happened to Cole's mother, Lily. Well, sort of. She rescued the Geckos and Munts from a dragon named Griefbringer, then passed away of an unknown disease several years later. The Skull Sorcerer actually sparked the disagreements between the Geckos and Munts, that way they'd be easier to control. Now there is certainly a lot to like about Season 13. Not only does Season 13 add a lot to Cole's backstory, it also elaborates on just the concept of elemental powers in general. The Skull Sorcerer is pretty frickin' awesome. And the feud between the Geckos and Munts was pretty by the numbers, but was overall still pretty fun. Aside from the schizophrenic barbarian, the Uply/Lowly weren't really all that notable. I feel Season 13 suffered the most from the 11-minute runtime. It ends up making the story feel longer, but also with less happening at the same time, and aside from Cole, most of the ninja don't really do a whole lot. There's also some plot twists that don't really land, like, oh no, the king was really the bad guy, who saw that coming? There's also this very minor side plot where Wu feels like he's getting too old and the ninja don't need him anymore, even though they've really been not needing him for like the past 78 seasons. Now, this last thing is more of a nitpick than an actual criticism, but I really like visually striking moments and settings, and to have this entire season set in this crusty, rusty old dungeon feels like such a shame. I have a lot of mixed feelings on Master of the Mountain, but since it is the first and only Cole season, and also one of the last few seasons Kirby Morrow recorded, I'm going to put it in Godzilla. Season 13 and a half, The Island, and also Season 14, Seabound, but they're pretty much the same season, so I'm just going to put them both on 14. Season 14 is the first Nia season. Hands of Time was kind of like Kai and Nia, but this one is purely just Nia. I really like that Nia finally has a full season to herself, but this one introduces a really weird retcon that kind of makes everything fall apart. So we find out that the element of water was never actually mastered by the first Spinjitzu master. Apparently, there is an elemental master of water named Niad that existed before the first Spinjitzu master even arrived on Earth. Niad sacrificed herself by becoming pure water to defeat this big, scary sea serpent called Wojira. So Wojira had these two amulets called the Wave Amulet and the Storm Amulet jammed into its noggin. The Wave Amulet was given to these fish people called Merlopians, whereas the Storm Amulet was given to the Islanders. And there's this Merlopian prince named Kalmar who wants to unite the two amulets so he can bring back Wojira and kill everyone for pretty much no reason at all. And no, really, I mean no reason. It's not like he has some sort of trauma or fear of the surface people or anything. He just hates them just to hate them. Even his father, King Trimar, tries to convince him not to hate humans, but he does anyway. I mean, sure, I guess you could argue that, like, pollution and stuff or whatever, but that's something that's never brought up in this. Now, while watching season 14, I started to realize something about the way a lot of Ninjago stories are written. And so, to explain things, let me just put it like this. So Niad existed before the first Spinjitzu master, yet somehow she has elemental powers. And also that amulet has water abilities, but she didn't get her powers from the amulet either. And the storm amulet started to remind me of Moro and Air Jitsu. There's one scene where Jay is getting really paranoid because he thinks their submarine is haunted, even though he should already know that ghosts can't touch water. Kai and Nia's parents from the 7th season show up again, and also Prince Vanya and the Upply from season 13 also make a return. Now, why exactly am I bringing all of this up? Well, I'm trying to highlight the fact that the world of Ninjago already has so much lore and mythos built up over these several seasons. I feel like it's just kind of unnecessary to retcon the entire origin of Nia's powers just to do a Nia season. Something that really did catch me off guard in this season was actually the finale. Previously, it was said that Nia had defeated Wojira by merging with the ocean, and it's also said that Nia has to do the same thing as well, meaning that she will die. And to my surprise, yeah, it happens. There's no fake out, no resurrection. She fuses with the ocean, and for a moment, I actually thought she was going to stay fused with the ocean. Oh yeah, also they meet an old man with dementia, and his dementia is played for laughs, which I really don't like because of how depressing his dementia is. Like, this guy is just stuck, like, forgetting everything over and over and over again. He's not gonna remember his whole life. He's like Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates. He's got dementia. This season definitely wanted to execute some pretty cool ideas, but I feel like it was just so all over the place and done in such a weird way, it didn't really land for me. So, it gets a mediocre tier. Season 15, Crystallized. Fun little fact about Crystallized, it's actually one of the most hated Ninjago seasons in the entire community. So, yeah, this'll be fun. Oh, and it's also the last season. And as the final season, it of course has to have the very cliche plotline of a villain team-up. Hey, at least this time the villains are actually alive. Right off the bat, we find out that the death of Nia has completely torn the group apart. Yeah, she gets resurrected like 3 episodes later. So they bust Asphira out of jail and enlist her to sap Nia's abilities away, turning her back to normal. This ends up getting them in hot water with the new mayor of Ninjago, Mayor Trustable. Yes, that is his name, Mayor Trustable. Now, this is not the first time the ninja have become public enemies. In fact, these 2 episodes almost have the exact same title, but this time they become enemies because of something they actually did, and not because they were framed by a shape-shifting genie. There's also a new group of ninja called, get ready for this, the New Ninja. Ah? I do not get why the new ninja exist. They show up, the old ninja get jealous of them, then they just kind of disappear for the rest of the series. Like, actually, what was the whole point of that? Mayor Trustable is implied to be evil, and it's also said that he's in cahoots with the new ninja, that he hired them for some suspicious purpose. But not really, also? The thing is, Mayor Trustable and the new ninja both turn out to not be evil, but at the same time, they're not really red herrings either. They just kind of allude to the idea that they might be evil like once or twice, then they disappear for like the entire season, and then like show up once at the end to be like, hey, I'm here and I'm not evil. We could have gotten a legitimately good Scooby-Doo unmasking where we find out whether or not Mayor Trustable is the bad guy, but they don't even try to do that, and the new ninja don't even have names. The actual main villain is a kabuki mask that's going around rounding up all the old villains. Together, they are the Council of the Crystal King. Whatever you do, do not abbreviate their name. A hop, a skip, and an Among Us reference later, we find out that the kabuki is actually uh, Harumi? And she's in cahoots with Overlord? What? Overlord just kind of decided that she wasn't dead anymore, because he can do that apparently. Either kill people off or don't kill them at all. God, I hate how Ninjago has become one of those shows. But what about Harumi's character arc? I thought she got her redemption and everything. Well, all that redemption is erased with just a little mind magic or whatever. Look at her eyes. Now, credit where credit is due, they did actually build up Harumi's return for quite a while. There is actually quite a bit of thematic continuity with these later seasons, like Zane not wanting to lose his humanity before becoming the Ice Emperor, and Nia not wanting to lose her powers. This even ties back to the Samurai X era, where Nia wanted to help the group despite not having any powers of her own. Overlord creates an army of indestructible crystal warriors that are immune to the ninja's elemental powers. They also have the ability to turn people into crystal zombies, which is very akin to his zombification ability from way back in Season 2. Season 15 finally features the long-awaited return of the GOAT himself, Garmadon. Now, there was actually a comic series that was meant to detail the events of what happened between March of the Oni and Crystallized. I have not read this series yet, but I do really want to. Except I'm pretty sure Crystallized retcons the entire story from ever happening, since it said that all along Garmadon was just living in some guy's apartment. So yeah, he just openly walks around harassing people in the public, basically, and no one noticed. Kind of defeats the whole, oh no, where is he thing from Season 11. Now this Garmadon is portrayed as a lot more comedic than usual, but I still think this one does have the much better character arc in comparison to the original Garmadon. But really, I'm just glad he's back after all this time. A big conflict in this season is how Lloyd knows that his Oni form can defeat the Overlord, but at the same time it'll also, consume him and drive him insane and everything. And in the end, he does turn into the Oni for about 5.5 seconds. Then he just kind of turns back immediately after. It's a little underwhelming. In the end, the ninja defeat the Overlord using their dragon forms. If that sounds like it came out of nowhere, it's because, well, it did. The dragon forms are something that's brought up 4 episodes before the finale, and they figure out how to use them pretty quickly. And the way the dragon form is activated, they have to, and I kid you not, jump up, kick back, whip around, and spin. If this season was better, this would have actually felt like a nice Easter egg. Oh yeah, and also in order for the dragon forms to work, the people around them have to be working together and unified and in harmony or whatever, which feels like this very random, half-baked theme they just kind of chucked in at the last second just so the dragon forms were harder to access. So then all the ninjas' powers combined into the golden ultra dragon, then it kills Overlord, then it pisses off. This is then followed by a scene that actually isn't even that bad, with all the characters helping the ninja repair the monastery, which was destroyed earlier this season. Garmadon gives a speech about family to a potted plant. I also really like that moment. Now, there is one thing this season that I liked a lot more than I was expecting to, and that was Fugidove. Fugidove is basically just this really weird fanboy that thinks he's the ninja's archenemy, and it gets very tiring very quickly. In Crystallized, when we actually see him interact with the ninja and see how they would react to having this weird guy obsessed with them, it becomes a lot more like actually funny. Now, Crystallized had a lot going for it, and I did actually thoroughly enjoy it as a finale to the series, but it just, so much of it just falls flat. Like, all the different plot lines don't really connect in any way, and again, why bring back Harumi when she already had the perfect character arc conclusion? But whatever, it's Crystallized. I wanted it to be good, but sadly, it's poo-poo, so it goes in poo-poo. And that was the Ninjago Not Really tier list. I think overall it is still a very good show. It definitely does hold up, and although after season 10 some of the seasons were kinda I think it still works. Now, I would have preferred it if the finale was about them going on a voyage from realm to realm, since the alternate realms are some of the most interesting and lore-heavy corners of this universe. And actually, the likelihood of that happening is a lot more than you might think. While I was finishing up this video, I found out that there actually is a new Ninjago series called United that will be premiering in, well, as of recording this video, a few weeks from now. Now, this is certainly very big news, but I'm not really sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. On one hand, we can finally get the ending we deserved, but on the other, just, oh my god, finish it already! You see, Ninjago finales are a lot like Zane deaths. They keep tearing our heart out over and over again, making us think it's the end when really it's not. I don't know, we'll see. It could still be good. But anyway, if you're interested in watching Ninjago, I completely, totally recommend you go check it out. And actually, believe it or not, I didn't spoil everything in this video. Technically, there's like 3 things I might have left out. But in all seriousness, I actually do recommend you go check it out. It is a very good show. Like this video if you want to see me cover Bionicle. But until then, this has been Bradworst, signing off. Zane, Moro, man, even the plant can't go 5 seconds without dying.